My channel has now hit 4,000 subscribers. And here we are with the special video in celebration of this milestone. For my 2,000 subscriber special back in 2021, I did a collection video of my Motor Road and Rail, Trackmaster Play-Rail and motorized collection. And when my channel hit 3,000 subscribers back in late 2023, I did a model railway collection video in celebration of it, and both those collections have gotten a lot bigger since those two collection videos. But what am I going to do for this occasion? Well, today I'm going to do a video on my history with Thomas. I originally wrote the script for this back around earlier this year because I was going to get it out in time for the 10th anniversary of The Adventure Begins, but then I thought about releasing it around Easter, but I have decided to save it for when my channel hits 4,000 subscribers. And the original beginning bit was also very outdated. And also back in December I was thinking of what ideas I could do for the 80th anniversary before I made Road to Rail Museum, and Trainboy17 gave me the idea of a video on my history of Thomas, and I liked the idea. So in today's video, in celebration of 4,000 subscribers, we are looking at my history with Thomas 2005 all the way up to present day. So with that introduction out of the way, since the original is pretty outdated, let's begin. And I also did get inspiration from Gondorf's retrospective that he did on Thomas back in 2017 for this. The story begins back when I was 2 years old, around, I think, 2005. Around that time, I was mostly into stuff like Bob the Builder, Pingu and Kipper the Dog, but it was around Christmas time when I first watched the very first Thomas and Friends episode that I ever saw, which was Thomas's Christmas Party on Nick Jr. Not sure if it was on Christmas Day or not, but I do also remember the Chocolate Crunch being my first Thomas DVD and VHS that I ever got. It, along with Thomas and the Magic Railroad, were the only Thomas VHS tapes I had as a child. The VHS you're seeing of the Chocolate Crunch is also not my childhood copy, but one that I bought in the charity shop back in 2017. My VHS copy of Thomas and the Magic Railroad has since been long since gone. And also, speaking of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, I was one of those people that were scared of Diesel 10 in that movie. So much in fact that I watched Colin All Engines a lot more than Magic Railroad. Looking back, I do feel that Diesel 10's portrayal on Colin All Engines was a downgrade from his persona in Magic Railroad. My first pieces of Thomas merch, as I said before in a Q&A video that I did 3 years ago, were a Push and Go Thomas and some Ertls that originally belonged to my older brother Jordan, along with his Brio Thomas, James and Percy as well. I did also get a lot of the Ertls that Jordan didn't have, including Wilbert and 16. However, the two remained unknown to me as I didn't have any of the Railway Series books that Christopher Audrey wrote at the time. Alongside that, I also had Thomas with Railway, Motor Road and Rail, and later Trackmaster, a Thomas spared, and I did used to own the My First Thomas range, but most of them were given away. And I also have given away the ones that weren't to my niece, and I also had Take-Along as well. And I think I also did get some from a shop in Bridlington like Miss Edward that I used on the diorama based around the runway that I did for the Talon that was just like Audrey challenge. I also have a story for this section as well. I remember one time when I bought a Take-Along Thomas while I was in Scarborough in 2006, which was the metallic one, and while I was playing with it on a cruise ship, my brother, who was 4 years older than me at the time, picked it up and threw it into the sea. And my mum and dad had to get a new one. Now before you ask, I don't have that anymore, I must have lost it somewhere down the line, but I did get a new one in 2019 along with Diesel. As for other bits of merch that I have, I did have a handful of books, including compilations of some of the Railway series, and I also watched the show on Nick Jr. and DVD. However, there were two that I didn't watch all the way through, those being the complete Series 5. Mostly as I was scared of episodes like Cranky Bugs, Toby and the Flood, Rusty and the Boulder, Stepney Gets Lost, meaning that I didn't get to watch every episode in it, although I did first watch Haunted Henry on a Hits Favourites release called Spooky Collection. And I also didn't watch the complete Series 3 DVD when I bought it straight away because of the episode Buzz Buzz, because I got scared by the scene where James got stung on the nose. This also scared my brother Jordan when he was a child as well, although there were plenty of other episodes in Thomas that scared me too, such as Percy Runs Away, Whistles and Sneezes, Thomas Percy and the Dragon, Henry and the Elephant, and like what I stated before, Cranky Bugs, Toby and the Flood, Rusty and the Bowler, Stepney Gets Lost, most of Diesel 10 scenes in Thomas and the Magic Railroad, Gordon Takes a Tumble, Scare the Engines, Thomas Percy and the Squeak, The Old Bridge, Halloween, and possibly Flower Power as well, while off the rails, mainly the way Ringo Starr says, "Get me out! Get me out!" A Scar for Percy, Thomas Percy and Old Slow Coach, and Busy Going Backwards Just Made Me Jump. Since I'm from the UK, I mostly grew up with Ringo Starr and Michael Angelis, although I did watch Fergus Breaks the Rules on a Hit Favourites DVD that featured Michael Brandon's narration of it. It was that and the Percy Takes the Plunge and Take Along sampler DVD, in which the episode was taken from Best of Percy, and both of those DVDs were the first time I ever heard the US version of Thomas. And plus, I do also remember seeing Thomas and Gordon
and My Little Thomas and Percy Adventures
on VHS when I was at primary school, along with Thomas, Percy and the Colon, and also Cole and Other Stories, also known as Down the Mine at Amy's House, with Thomas, Percy and the Cole and Other Stories being my first exposure to the Season 2 name boards. And I also did remember seeing a VHS at Play Scheme called Calling All Toddlers, which featured Thomas's train, although I'm not sure which one because there were two of those. And since I got into Thomas in 2005, this was during the hit era, which was mixed feelings among fans, and Season 10 was pretty much my first exposure to new episodes. And fun fact, aside from seeing a promo on Nick Jr. for Season 11, which featured clips from With Billy and Hector's introductions, my first exposure to their introductions was with the My Thomas Story Library books, as I didn't get to watch them until later on. I also did go to some Day Out with Thomas events as well during that time, as well as going to one at the National Railway Museum in New York, in which I got a take-along match from there. And also, looking back on the hit era, I did think Season 8 was pretty good, while Season 9 was pretty meh, and nowadays I think Season 10 is not very good. But Season 11 does have a lot more hidden gems compared to Season 10, like what Usual Bloke Luke had pointed out. So I am also one of those people that called Season 11 good because of it. And I also didn't get to see Season 12 when it first aired on Milkshake in 2008, but I did get to see The Great Discovery on DVD before it and liked it. So yeah, I was pretty much in peak Thomas mode during that time period, but then we get to when Season 12 aired on Nick Jr., and I wasn't a fan of it. It had to do with the CGI faces, and I just wasn't keen on the new style that they were going for. I only watched the first few minutes of Saved You, and that was it. But I soon warmed up to CGI Thomas when I saw Hero of the Rails on the big screen. And also, is it just me, or did anyone else think Hero was voiced by Pierce Brosnan when they first heard his voice? Not sure if this is just me, but anyways. And I was one of those people that liked the Night Vision era at first when it was new. This includes stuff like Misty Island Rescue and Day the Diesels. But by the time the Brenner era came along, I pretty much started to agree with most of the people that say it's definitely the worst era of Thomas. I did enjoy Hero of the Rails when I first saw it in cinemas and later got it on DVD after that. November 2009 was also where I started going onto YouTube and started watching the various Thomas fan videos on there. However, it was mostly episode remakes and Railway series adaptations rather than original stories and fan series. Aside from Shepard Studio Productions, this also includes some that have since been taken off of YouTube, including Murdoch and Henry 35's episode remakes that he did with his Ertl trains, and Matt Cooper's old RWS adaptations from the 2000s that were made in trains. 2010 was also where I discovered both the Thomas Wiki and the Real Lives of Thomas the Tank Engine website, which was a database created by Simon Clutterbucks, featuring a handful of info about the Railway series, which is also where I learned about Christopher Awdry's Railway series books and Wilbert Awdry's models and his layout of the Farfar branch line, and the basis for most of the characters, alongside Awdry's Mid-Soda layout of the Mid-Soda Railway and the other Mid-Soda engines. Before that, I remember seeing really useful engines in Gordon the High-Speed Engine at Amy's house, and Jock the new engine at the National Rail Museum, although I would later get that in the new collection in 2020, and Great Little Engines at my primary school, and the book club version of James and the Diesel Engine and Henry and the Elephant and Fire Engine respectively.
And I also had Thomas the Runaway as a kid, which had Thomas Percy and the Colin and Runaway respectively, as well as my first exposure to the Railway series versions of the two stories. Now I have all of Chris's book in the new collection, minus Thomas and his friends, given I saw one on eBay that was going for like 500 quid, and which is why I think Chris's book should have gotten reprinted ASAP. Before that, I had Wilbert the Forest Engine, Henry and the Express, and Thomas and the Great Railway Show, which my primary school also had when they were having a seaside thing, and I pretty much took it home with me. My mum also brought home Great Little Engines from my primary school in 2013, along New Little Engines that year while I was at the Tile Inn Railway, and I also had really useful engines in Thomas and Victoria. I would later get to see Wilbert's models in person on my first trip to the Tile Inn Railway in 2011 for my 8th birthday during Wilbert Awdry's centenary, in which I got to see Sir Hayden, Edward Thomas and Tom Roll in steam. In later years, I've been to the Snowdon Mountain Railway, which was the basis for the Coley Fell Railway, both the Festiniog and Corris Railways, which were the basis for the Mid-Soda Railway, and the Bluebell Railway, where Stepney resides. And even though I haven't been to the Raven, the Larsen Estelle Railway, I have seen some of its engines in person. This includes River Might at the Awdry Extravaganza 5 in the guise of Mike, and I would also like to go to the Mean Valley Railway and see their Thomas in person. 2011 was also where I started checking out more original stories and fan series. I stumbled upon the Railway Inspector Freeze series, and it was also technically how I started collecting more model railway engines and rolling stock, since at first all I had was the Thomas Passenger set, a Hornby Starter set, in which I still have the engine from that set, but it doesn't work, and I would used to have it set up in the garden, but that was all I had. Until Christmas of that year, in which I got the Thomas Passenger in good set and the Flying Scotsman, which I later repainted into my own realistic Gordon. 2012 was also the year that I got into Tugs, the short-lived sister show to Thomas. Prior to that, I had heard some music from that show, such as the main theme and the Dangerous Rescue theme. 2015 was also where I started making videos based around Thomas. Some were filmed on a DS or an iPad, such as a video I did with the Thomas characters I had in my model railway collection at the time, minus Thomas and Stepney, along with some attempts at recreating the Railway series in Thomas Wooden Railway and some original stories, although for Christmas of that year I got a VTech camera and I filmed a lot of stuff with it in preparation of my own Thomas series, which I had the idea for back in 2013. Yeah, bet you didn't know I had the idea for Tales from Sutter's Railway since I was 10, didn't you? This also included a series I filmed with my model railway collection at the time, but it did have a lot of stolen assets from Joey Turner's older videos and WTL Network's Thomas YouTube poops, which was pretty lazy of me in retrospect. I also did 2 specials for it. One of them was a parody of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, and the other was a parody of Jenny Beyond Sodor. After I was unable to see it in cinemas, like with the other specials such as Blue Mountain Mystery, King of the Railway, Tale of the Brave, Sodor's Legend and Lost Treasure, The Great Race and Big World Big Adventures. And I also got to see Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure in cinemas twice when it came out. And I still find it hard to believe it's been 10 years since the movie came out. And speaking of Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure, I didn't actually think about doing a rewrite of the movie at first, but I decided to do it after I got the idea of having Ryan be the main protagonist, since he was originally written as overconfident. Now we get to when Big World Big Adventures was announced. At first I figured I would skip the season as I wasn't too keen on the idea. Well, mainly Thomas going around the world and ditching the narrator. I thought it would be too early to be bashing on it, and so I decided to wait until it comes out and form my own opinion. When I did see the movie in cinemas, I didn't think it was the worst thing ever, but looking back, I'm not a fan of Ace for obvious reasons. Although for season 22 I was only planning on watching School of Duck, but after hearing that Michael White, aka White House Films as he is known as on YouTube, was the writer of An Engine of Many Colours, I decided to check it out and I liked it. Although I don't know as to why I didn't watch Hunt the Truck or the 2 Rebecca episodes, since Rebecca is one character that I like that most people don't.
And this was also around the time I had started posting videos on YouTube more often, but they were mostly filmed with my clunky old camera and the quality of it wasn't very good. The same could be said with my series about Wilbert I was doing at the time, and I'm also not very proud of that series, although I feel most of my newer viewers might not know about the series compared to Tales from Sodor's Railways. And I also have no plans to set the episodes to public again because I wouldn't call it good or amazing, just not very good. Although 2019 was where my videos started to improve as I was using my dad's original phone for filming, and I filmed a lot of videos on it, like remakes and unboxings. But July of that year was where I officially started my own Thomas series, which has currently 4 seasons, 66 episodes, with the next episode arriving soon, 2 shorts and 11 specials at the time I'm writing this. In 2020, during the 75th anniversary, we got the final episode, Thomas and the Royal Engine, and I did really like the episode when it first came out, and I thought it was a great finale to the original show before All Engines Go came around. But not just yet, as we still have to talk about the other special episode for the 75th anniversary.
Yeah. Marvelous Machinery. I did think it was good when it first came out, but now I think it's safe to say it's one of the worst of the double-length episodes for obvious reasons. A lot of things in it felt way too out of place for something like Thomas. This was also where the original show concluded and All Engines Go was announced, and like most people, I was unsatisfied with it after it was announced, and I decided to not watch it.
But after seeing some of the toxic All Engines Go haters on the internet, it was where I decided I'm not into All Engines Go, but I wouldn't harass and bully the people who like it or work on it because it's just not cool and very petty and stupid. Although, as you probably may know, I got that motorised All Engines Go Thomas for the review on the new motorised CGI Thomas and Percy I did. Not sure how well it did in terms of execution. It also wasn't released at the time the original script was made, so this was before I bought mine at the Audio Extravaganza 5. And I also considered getting the Plarail AEG Nia for a custom of the Nene Valley Railway Thomas. And also, around Christmas of that year, I also started collecting US DVDs of the classic Hit and Brenner season, starting with Ultimate Christmas. If you see my Thomas DVD collection and Thomas Fan 261's video, you may know they featured most of the ones that I had at the time. I do have most of them minus Thomas's Christmas Wonderland. Not sure if I'll get that.
And as you probably may know, I have been to various Thomas-themed events, such as the Talyllyn Railway's Orgy Extravaganzas and their Railway Series weekend, the Tugs the Exhibition events, and the Lower Tidmouth display in 2019, where I got to meet the Sodor Samurai for the first time. I also got these face casts of Thomas and Gordon that I still have in present day. And like most people, I've also been doing customs of various engines, although despite that I've mostly been watching Thomas fan content at this point, as well as working on my own Thomas series, I also wanted to dedicate this little section to Shining Time Station, Thomas's USA spin-off show. Like most people over in the UK, I was first introduced with some of the characters that were in Thomas and the Magic Railroad. And I also had watched some episodes prior to this. The ones I can think off the top of my head were Tis a Gift and Scaredares. And the ones that I also watched in 2018, although after I heard the sad news that Britt Allcroft had passed away, I decided to rewatch the entirety of Shining Time Station in honour of Britt, and also did get to watch Mr. Conductor's Thomas Tales as well. I have also got more videos planned before the 80th anniversary year is over, such as reviews of the new motorised CGI Gordon James, and possibly the new push-along CGI Henry and James if I can get my hands on the former, the Plarail Gold Thomas when I get my hands on one, and the two Bachmann 80th anniversary vans. Oh boy! This was a long video. I wrote the script for it possibly back around March, and there were other bits of info that I didn't include, but all in all, I'm so glad that it's finally out. So if you have made it this far, I thank you all for watching, and this is your friend Maliki, and this has been my history with Thomas. Peace out, and I'll see you all next time.
To a Shining Time Station.